Okay, hi everyone. I'm back today with Babula, and we're talking about we're talking about everything, but we're talking about the new moon in Taurus, of course. But there's been so much civil unrest in the US, particularly, but all around the world at the moment, isn't it?
There absolutely is. There's just been so much, reaction and counter-reaction, and to just the whole situation, to what governments are doing and the pandemic, and everyone's got different points of view and a different angle on it, and it's like stirred up a massive hornet's nest around the world. Yeah,
a lot of Aquarian energy.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And it seems to be moving at breakneck speed too.
Yeah. And like last week, I think I contacted you and I said, have a look at the astrology for this, and Trump's dumped the CDC, the WHO, and Bill Gates on all the, the numbers that they were coming up with, as like the models. And it was like, and wow, this must be something significant. Was there any significant astrology on that particular day? Do you know?
Gosh, I can't remember. Like, everything's happening so quickly. I can't remember specifically on that date. I've just noticed in general that since this Jupiter-Pluto conjunction started a couple of weeks ago, that really seemed to kick in just a tremendous amount of revelations and counter-revelations and counter-revelations, and the whole question of, well, what's the real truth? And we're having to navigate our way through like a minefield of false news, truth, what's real, what's not. But yeah, there would have been, like, when something major like that happens, you'll often get something like a setup with the planets, and then perhaps a fast-moving planet like the moon or Mercury might come in and just trigger it off in that moment, and there's an event or an announcement,
And that's it. Kaboom.
Yeah, that's right. That was big. Yeah.
So, all right, well, let's start off with the new moon in Taurus. How's that going to play out for us?
Yes, well, this is an interesting one, and of course we're always fascinated by the moon cycle. It's so important to we human beings because it has such a direct impact on us on a very emotional and organic level. The moon relates to biology, the earth, to everything is in response to the moon and her cycles and phases, and we feel it so closely, and so this new moon, which will be occurring at 12:30 on the 23rd, on the 23rd, it's a new moon in Taurus, which it always is at this time of year. The new moon so it begins the new 4-week cycle, and the whole cycle of the moon, this one will have that Taurian flavor, and I'll talk about that. But then what we notice is that this particular moon has a conjunction with the planet Uranus. So the new moon actually occurs in early Taurus at 3 degrees, which is a very interesting degree in itself, and I want to say something about that. Conjunct Uranus at 6 degrees of Taurus. You've got Sun and Moon at 3 of Taurus, Uranus at 6 of Taurus. So Uranus is the planet that we say rules the sign of Aquarius. So it brings with it, it holds, it carries, it represents that Aquarian energy. And it's all about radical change, shocks, surprises, the unexpected. But it's also about consciousness. And so it's not just a revolution in terms of, earthly, worldly, human experiences. It also represents a revolution in consciousness. Like, sometimes it used to be called the Great Awakener, and I think it's a great name for this planet. The great, if he represents something, he is the Great Awakener. And his job, if you like, through shocks and surprises and chaos and disruption, to literally wake us up out of our sleep. Mystics for hundreds, thousands of years have often used that kind of terminology, like we're all fast asleep, just snoring our heads off. And waking up or awakening and enlightenment, that kind of language actually refers to kind of waking up out of the dream, just like the movie The Matrix.
Yeah.
You know, so certain individuals wake up and go, wait a minute, and it's an awakening, not of just around knowledge, that's a part of it, and ideas and revelation. It's literally changes that happen in our nervous system, in our brain, in consciousness itself. And through like light, actually, you know, light, because in nature, Uranus governs things like lightning, literally. You know, wild lightning storms are governed by the planet Uranus, and earthquakes, cataclysmic, sudden changes. And I will make a reference to Trump here. You know, whatever our opinion of him is, he is a Uranian, I see him as a Uranian plant. You know, he's been planted in this position by the cosmos, you know, by life, by forces. This is just my take on it, to play a particular function at this time. And he plays it extremely well. He's the wild card. And Uranus is that wild card energy. We have no real control over it. We cannot predict it. And it shatters things, it breaks things. And I think one of the reasons so he has such a following is that he represents something that is not of the established order, and that's why he has a following. And some people have mixed feelings about him. Some people are like a dead against him, and so on. So there's an outrageousness about Uranus.
Yes.
You know, it's outrageous.
Yeah.
Which, you know, this is the Aquarian energy. And so this new moon is imbuing this whole 4-week cycle that begins on the 23rd at 12:30 in our time in Brisbane. That's when the exact moment of the new moon. This new moon is stamped with that Uranian energy. So, you know, hang on to your hats, folks, because there's going to be more, you know, more like unusual, sudden, and reversals, you know, like, and Trump, who has a very strong Uranus statement in his chart, very, very, very strong. You know, he's very famous for just completely, you know, turnarounds.
Yeah.
Completely reversing, you know, one day one thing, next day the opposite. So, you know, it's really, really interesting.
He's a bit of a double take agent, because you hear him say something, you go, what? Let me go back and have a listen to that again. You know?
I know, really? Did he? What was that? That's right. And it is kind of shocking, you know. It's shocking sometimes to us, and I think that's like, you can't ignore the man, because he's just so outrageous, and yet he is a change agent, as all Uranian Aquarian people are. You know, they are change agents, for better or for worse.
Yeah, they can play that role negatively or positively, can't they?
Absolutely, absolutely.
This new moon in Taurus, because I know Taurus, and I have some friends who are Taurians, but they're fairly stable people.
Yes.
You know, so it's like I was thinking yesterday that the government payment packages are going to start rolling out. And I thought, isn't it interesting that it's probably going to roll out in this, they are supposed to be starting to roll out this next month, offering some sort of stability to the public.
Yes.
Yeah, so it's, and about, you know, with money too, because Taurus is about money, isn't it, as well?
It certainly is. It certainly is. And, you know, Uranus moved into Taurus 2018, 2019. It takes a year for these slow-moving planets to move across the cusp of a sign and back again until it's fully in it. So certainly last year, Uranus was fully in the sign of Taurus and is here now for 7 years. So yes, Taurus, a fixed earth sign. Mm-hmm. And I too know a lot of Taurian people, and they, even when you look at the way they inhabit their bodies, there's a fixed earth quality. You can see it. There's a groundedness, you know, there's a physicality. It's like a tree deeply rooted in the earth to withstand all sorts of wild weather and winds and storms and so on. And so it's a very grounded energy, and it also is about stability and money and finances and you know, feeling secure in your life. And in the world we live in, money is a major form that we use to create that sense of stability and an anchor, you know,
Yeah.
and security.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so with the movement of Uranus, this planet of upheaval and change, and it's a big, strong energy coming into this sign of stability and permanence. We will, even apart from what's happening in Capricorn, just this alone is plenty to create a lot of disturbance and disruption and upheaval.
Mm-hmm. This week I noticed there was a lightening, I guess you'd say, of, you know, because now they're starting to talk about in the future tense of lightening restrictions, and there was a real shift in energy that I felt.
Yes.
What about you? This is sort of,
yes,
you know, lightness to the conversation around it, leading the public to feeling a little bit calmer.
I think so too. I think so too. And for the first time, beginning to speak of, now we're looking forward to, you know, when we can begin to lift restrictions one step at a time. Slowly is the Taurian way. Our PM is a Taurian, you know, and so, you know, the Taurian way is slowly, steady as you go sort of thing. And I think the Uranian part of this is people are really feeling the sense of, not everybody, but many are feeling kind of trapped, and I want to get out, which is very Uranus. You know, I need to get out. I need my freedom back again, and I want to get back to the beach, and I want to do some of those things I haven't been able to do. And because Uranus is also the planet of revolution, okay, it is literally the planet that represents revolution in many ways. This new moon is going to be triggering more of that, I think, rebellion and revolution in many ways, in small little ways. Like even individuals are going to feel like, you know what, I'm just going to go and do it anyway, to, you know, bigger movements of people.
Well, I was horrified yesterday when I saw that some Americans are on the streets with guns saying, we want our rights back, we want our freedom.
I know.
Yeah, so I can see what you're saying.
That's right. And America has quite a strong theme astrologically of Uranus Aquarius, and it was sort of formed on those ideas, on those ideals of our individual rights, our individual freedoms. I mean, it's kind of turned into some kind of strange version of that, but, you know, they were the original principles, and a lot of their early founders were actually Aquarians. You know, so, and the early history of America is so interesting because there was, you know, revolutions. It was kind of formed out of revolution against the British, and then the revolution and the civil wars to free the slaves. And I think this idea of being armed to maintain our right, you know, there's this sense of I have a right to be armed. I think it's so deep in the psyche in America. So things could potentially get quite volatile.
Yeah, if they haven't already. And we just
it's already kind of starting. And Mr. Trump, the, you know, very Uranian character with a very loose tongue, you know, is kind of inflaming things somewhat.
Yeah. Good on him.
He's just playing his part.
He is in so many ways, and there's other people around the world doing the same thing.
That's right.
I was going to ask you too, though, like Taurus is an earth sign, so people have sort of turned back to the earth, haven't they? They're getting their hands in the garden and going, you know, just wanting to sort of go dig and plant and dig and plant.
That's exactly right. And also, like, I'm aware, I go for a walk every day. I just need to be out in nature and the sun and the trees and so on. And I'm seeing, you know, like lot of men are home now, and they're kind of working on their house, and they're out in their garden and their yard, and perhaps normally they'd be at work and really busy and distracted and all of that. So that, like, working with your hands absolutely is very Taurus, and the garden and the earth. It's and you know, on Facebook you'll see endless posts about recommending that we remain connected to the earth, and I'm a passionate believer in that, because Uranus is very ungrounding. You know, it's Uranus in Greek mythology. These gods are all named after Roman Greek gods and goddesses. He is sky god. Like, so that's why, like, Uranus Aquarius is that sky energy, cosmos, universe, stars. So it's an energy from there. In Taurus, the most earthed and grounded sign. So I think there's a wonderful image we can take from that. And to me, it's like, if we're really grounded in nature, in our bodies, on the earth, and really bringing consciousness to that, which is Uranus, you know, we can actually open and receive more Uranian energy and earth it and ground it and use it and integrate it well. If we're not grounded, Uranus can make us a little crazy, you know? Like electricians know electricity is safe when there's an earth fire.
Yes, yes.
And I always think of that. And like a tree, you know, it can share its beauty and its perfume and its flowers to the heavens, but it has to be rooted in the earth.
Yeah.
I think those kinds of images and analogies are really helpful for us while Uranus goes through this sign. I think that's why it's so important, that sense of, and that's not the only reason, but that's certainly a part of it, to be connected to the earth and to our bodies, because people are getting disturbed, you know, so it can really disturb people's mental equilibrium, this energy.
Yeah. When we're disturbed, it sort of creates little nooks and crannies, doesn't it, within us, where light can enter. And that's the what you're saying about the Great Awakener, isn't it? How this it can we can be lit up. And I was just having a conversation earlier today saying that in the alternative awakening community, I don't know how else to say it, but we're already there. It's like we're born with that seed within us. But right now, there's a potential for a lot of other people to do that too, to get on board and, you know, sort of crack open a little bit more than what they've been, so that they can think outside the box. They can have a different view, different perspective of things, feel differently about things, think about how to, you know, that maybe they might like to be working at home remotely from now on, all those sorts of things.
That's
which
right.
never thought of before, you know.
That's right. And maybe a sense of community might strengthen and change for some people. And because Uranus, as the Aquarian planet, is very much about, you know, people, community, connection in all its different forms. Yeah, and yeah, that sense of, you know, connectedness as a human race, you know, the race of all human people.
Yeah.
Yeah. and not only human, you know, all sentient beings, life itself actually, but, you know, we experience it in Aquarius, primarily human to human.
But I was thinking, as we just discussed last week briefly, that, you know, there's because it's all about the earth at the moment, or it's earth sign, it's really interesting. I had a different perspective with this virus of, you know, in that the animal kingdom has been intruded upon by humans for such a long time, and their various species have become endangered. And I thought, well, isn't it interesting that now we're the endangered species, and how does it feel for us as our species to be threatened like that? We don't like it, and so it gives you an idea of how, you know, what's going on in the animal kingdom.
Very good point. Absolutely, we don't like it at all. People are feeling terror. You know, panic, fear, anxiety. That's right. And I just think, you know, at this time, you know, we had the fires, and well, it wasn't only Australia that had massive fires in
California.
California, in Brazil, in the north of Russia, in Africa. We didn't hear much about those, but they
No.
were raging, huge fires. So, you know, and now the COVID-19, of course, has taken up all the airspace, and some of those other issues have been sort of relegated to the back of our awareness for now, which is a shame, but that's, I get it, I understand that. This is all to the forefront. Yes, that's right. Those issues are continuing, and I am noticing that even here in Australia, certain things are going on behind the cover of COVID's, you know, COVID-19, that are not great environmentally, because we're not really paying attention to that now.
That's right. Yeah. A lot of things are slipping past us.
They are, that's right, because we're so focused collectively on this, and you know, every news bulletin, you know, most of it's full of this. Yeah. Yeah, so the animal kingdom and the natural world, I've always felt that, you know, Earth will always survive, and Earth could do very well without us, actually, thank you very much. But you know, we're here and not doing a very good job of stewardship and living with her at all, and not doing very well at that. So, and it is a shift of consciousness, isn't it, that's required to change the way we live on this planet, a complete, radical change of consciousness.
Yeah. Like I said to you before, knee deep in shift.
Knee deep in it, absolutely. Yes. Shift is here, it's on, it's happening, we're living it.
And it's not all bad. You know, there are some things that we needed to shift away from. I think we all felt, or not all, well, probably a lot of people felt that civilization in general was going in the wrong direction. Well, let's say at least in the Western world,
yes.
in the first world countries, it's been sick.
For a long time.
Yeah, there's serious disease in the first world countries on this planet. The decisions they make and the way that they operate, and sacrificing the environment and people's health for money, you know, it's wrong. It's so wrong.
So, and so foolish and so stupid, you know, utter stupidity, really. And there's no way that could continue in that same trajectory.
Yeah.
And absolutely, so that's right. So we're in the midst of this tremendous turmoil. You know, as Andrew Harvey so eloquently speaks, you know, that we're in the death throes of something on a very large scale, as a prelude to an incredible birthing of something new. And right now we're right in the middle of all of that. You know, we can't really see clearly what's to come, and requires a lot of faith, doesn't it, and trust.
Yeah.
That, you know, and deep breaths. Okay, this is the process we're in, and we have to just keep trusting that these forces of transformation and change will lead us to something better. But that depends on us, doesn't it? It really depends on us.
Yeah, I mean, trust, you know, that relates to the throat chakra, and we were talking before about how the Taurus rules the throat, and it's hard for people to trust anything at the moment, because we're seeing so many lies bubbling up to the surface and contradictions. It's ridiculous. So it doesn't surprise me that individuals are speaking their truth.
Yes.
Standing up and talking about that.
Yes, exactly. And that's a really good point, because, and I think that's really significant with the presence of Uranus here, because Uranus, as you said before, cracks things open, you know, and there's a sense of, well, if not now, when? You know, and I agree, absolutely. I'm experiencing in myself. I'm a lot more outspoken than I used to be. And I'm noticing everywhere more and more people, and even Indigenous leaders, healers, shamans, they're coming forward and they're saying things like, it's time to speak now. Have you noticed that?
They've been doing it for a while.
Yeah.
Yeah, I have seen a few different things. Native American people,
Yes.
the Grandmothers Council, Aboriginal elders, various people from different cultures,
Yes.
Indigenous people coming forward and saying, can't, you need to pay attention to this.
That's right. That's South America as well. That's right.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. So Uranus is causing this tremendous disturbance, but it's also bringing a lot of light and energy to Earth. And I think that's also, Uranus was only discovered in 1781. And its discovery, in fact, I'm running an online workshop about this tomorrow. It's just on the new moon. Its discovery brought in the beginning, literally, of the modern world that we know. That there are so many things that actually began to happen fast at the discovery of that planet. So its energy, when it's really active, like it is now, and right on this new moon, there are points where it goes, "Oh, Uranus energy is really strong right now." Then there's a whole other new kind of injection of that energy just comes surging through. It's like a power surge, it's electricity, literally like a power surge. And so we can get disturbed by that if we're not grounded. Our systems can sometimes feel a little bit fried. Like certain years we'll have strong Uranus transits to our own personal chart. And we can just I feel like someone's plugged me into a high voltage socket. It can feel, and our sleep can be disturbed. So some people can be really experiencing that. There's so much energy coming in, and for some people light, and it needs to be integrated. And if it's not grounded, and if we're not consciously in our bodies, it can be quite, and I think for many people they're not. So
I've been suffering from that with the sleep problems.
Yes.
But also it's like lightning has struck.
Yes, exactly.
And boom, I'm alive, like, wow, I've got to get out and interview Babua and
That's right.
all about these other things and have conscious conversations about all sorts of things.
Yes.
And that energy it's ramped up. I mean, I've always been, I guess you could say, well, like you, I'm a hippie within.
Right.
But I also have a side to me that is, could very much be an activist. But I want to do that in a way that relates to, that other people can relate to in many different ways. And so for me, that's been triggered to become active about getting these conversations started, about moving us through the whole thing, and who are we and how do we feel about it, and what's the world going to look like on the other side of this, and what do we want it to look like, and what choices do we have to make that happen, So that's sort of been really, I'm like, this is wired.
Yes. And this is one of the beautiful things about Uranus, is that it sort of wakes up a kind of excitement, about, wow, it can feel like that, and a sense of liberation and a freedom perhaps from maybe something we might have held back from before. And I see this all the time, when I do sessions with people of having Uranus transits. It's like whether they think they're ready for it or not, it's time for things to change, because now you're ready for a new level of freedom. And if you look closely, you'll realize how exciting that is.
Yeah.
So it can be really, and I totally understand what you're saying. For many, there is a feeling of, oh, wow, this is fantastic, this is thrilling at last. At last things are moving and they're starting to change, and it's not easy and it's not all pretty, but there's a sense of possibility and the future. It's a very futuristic energy.
Yeah, very much so.
That's right. And that's why Aquarian types of people, and you don't have to be an Aquarian sun sign, you can have Aquarius strong in other ways in your chart, like you know, are futuristic in their thinking, always forward looking, you know, to what's possible, and that's what this is all about now, as we're on the cusp of the Aquarian age, looking to the
Yeah.
future.
Yeah.
Like, you know, there's that wonderful saying, and I don't know who said it, but I love it, and don't look back, you're not going that way.
Yeah. It's so true, isn't it?
It's so true. We're not going that way, we're going this way.
Yeah.
That's
You already
right.
left those footprints.
That's right. That's right.
Yeah.
That's back there. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
And of course, Capricorn, which is so key in all of this too now, as we've spoken of before, with all the big planets in Capricorn, does tend to hold more to the traditions of the past. And there's a lot of value if they're really clear, good, spiritually sound traditions, you know, like the indigenous knowledge and so on. But when they're just kind of worldly edifices that are stuck in the past and rigid and become really rigid and corrupted, then that has to change, you know. So, yeah.
I was also thinking too about Taurus governing the throat, and going back to that throat chakra, which is about, you know, speaking our truth and expressing who we are. It's also about the inner voice, with the voice within too, isn't it? So so sometimes, like we were saying, is get out of all the noise and everything, you know, reading all the stuff, all the news items, all that. Just get out of that and go into the garden or out to the local park or something like that, and tune into that inner voice, because I think it offers the best guidance for us when we listen to it.
I absolutely agree. That's right. We can just be tossed all over the place if we're just listening to all the input that's coming in from so many directions. That's right. I completely agree. I've been on some of my walks. I've got a nice big cotton sarong, and I take it with me. And at some point I'll find somewhere nice under a lovely tree, and I'll lay it down, and I just lie down on the ground, you know, and just gaze up at the sky and the trees and just go really, really quiet and just tune in, you know. And I think we can all find ways to do that are just natural to us, or that really call us in our own particular way. Or, you know, it might be going out into your garden, even a balcony, and just having a little chat with a bird that's landed on the balcony railing, you know, as it's singing its song. There's so many ways. And talking to our plants and taking our shoes off and getting our feet on, or just sitting quietly in meditation. Because I might have mentioned this before, you know, Buddhism to me is very connected to the sign of Taurus. And you don't have to be a Buddhist, but just that the wonderful gift that Buddhism has brought to us, and the tragedy of Tibet has a pearl in it, of course, and that is that the teachings have all come to the West now.
Yeah.
They're not just tucked away in Tibet. I mean, it's tragedy, but and they do say there is a prophecy that in time Tibet will be restored to its, you know, it's sort of holy place in the world, and become a spiritual sanctuary for people. And I feel like that's very likely so at some point that will happen. But back to what I was saying, you know, just meditation, just sitting very still, whether it's outside or inside, whatever space you've got, just sitting very still and feeling your body and just breathing quietly and feeling like a tree, feeling your body just settle into the floor. You know, that simple act. Fancy techniques aren't needed. You know, if you love fancy techniques, go for it. But if just really simple, let the body relax, be really still, be quiet, just breathe and just feel and just tune in, just notice. Yeah.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Lovely. And you can do meditation, just gardening too, you know.
You can.
Because the idea is, you know, meditation, a lot of people say you have to think of nothing.
Okay. No, well, our minds aren't going to cooperate with that.
No.
They're just not going to. And then people give up because they go, I can't do it.
I know.
Of course we can't do it.
Yeah. So it's about freeing the mind, really.
That's right.
Freeing the mind. And I find the best way to do that is getting my hands in the soil, in the garden. I'm focused on what I'm doing, but I'm at the same time, I'm not really thinking about anything. I'm just responding to the plants.
and you're enjoying yourself.
Yeah.
You know, because Taurus is ruled by Venus. She's the goddess of love and beauty and pleasure. You know, so it's the pleasure that the natural world gives to us and her jaw-dropping beauty. You know, just crazy beauty that we. And for me, going for those walks, I used to sort of walk for exercise. I was never like one of these. I'm just not that kind of person. But these days, what I find the most beneficial thing for me, I notice if I'm speeding up, because I do naturally walk quite fast, I just go slow down. The minute I slow my pace, my breathing slows down, I feel my whole body relax, and suddenly I'm present and I'm noticing what's going on around me. And the walk becomes then just pleasure and more like meditation. So my awareness is in tune with my body and so on. So simple things like that. And Taurus to me is a sign of such simplicity. I think this is one of the most beautiful things. Like, its energy to me is just simple pleasure, enjoyment, and beauty. Doesn't have to be complicated or fancy at all.
Yeah, that's wonderful.
Yeah.
Is there anything else pinging us at the moment?
Let's see. So I think we touched on, actually what I will bring in is, well, the sun's now in Taurus as well. So that just happened on the 20th. So the sun's come out of Aries. So, you know, when the sun goes in Aries every year, you know, the end of March, first 20 odd days or so of April, you know, the Aries is that fiery, you know, we get all fired up, and everybody was, you know, you could see it. There was this kind of fiery energy. When the sun then moves into Taurus, it's okay, let's just slow this down. Let's calm this down. And it's often the Taurians will say things like, look, just calm down, you know, which can be very annoying if you're all stirred up about something. But it's a much slower energy. You know, Aries is the rocket that just takes off, and Taurus is a slower vibration. It's just take it easy. And so I think that's a really helpful thing for these next 4 weeks. Pluto, who's been a very big player in events of 2020, turns retrograde on the 26th. Now, when planets turn retrograde, I'm sure most people listening to this have heard of that. Some will understand it, some will have heard of it. It's when a planet in the sky appears to turn back and go back over the sort of pathway where it's been. And for a slow-moving planet like Pluto, and pretty much now, for the next week or so, he appears to slow right down and come to a standstill. So around those couple of days of the 26th, so, you know, really like from now for this week, Pluto is very, very slow and what we call stationary. And then as he turns and moves backwards, he will slowly gather a little bit of speed. But Pluto's speed is not very fast at all because he's so far out there. It takes a long time to travel distances. So I've always noticed over the years that when a planet is in that stationary phase, the energy that it represents is really quite strong. And so Pluto is now quite strong, and so and I'm feeling it too. And I think partly I'm feeling it because we're in the balsamic moon phase, you know, just before the new moon. And that happens, you know, we can feel a little more tired, a little kind of more, oh, I don't really feel like it, or, you know, we just want to rest more, you know. But it's also this Pluto stationary energy that's coming in now as an influence. And Pluto is the guy who takes us really deep. He's the, you know, the lord of the underworld, Hades, Pluto, Hades, god of the underworld. And so he can take us quite deep. And so if some people find over this next few days or week, they're just feeling a bit like they're sort of trying to tread through a quagmire or something, I would say that would be a big part of why they might be feeling like that, you know? And so I think it's a good idea to not push ourselves, force anything, but it's a really wonderful opportunity to go deeper, to see, keep looking underneath, you know, like question things. Well, hang on, what is that really, you know, and just peel away a few layers and investigate a little bit deeper. I think one of the things we'll see is more stuff being uncovered.
Yeah.
That's Pluto's job. You know, dredge up stuff from the dark shadows and bring it to the light.
I hope so. Yeah, that would be really good. I think it's,
I do too.
the corruption on the planet is just out of control.
Out of control, endemic. It's just, it's through everything.
It's a culture.
It's a complete and utter culture, that's right.
And it's got to stop. And I'm hopeful that a lot of it will through this, because things will be revealed. And just as we're learning about truths at our level, there are people higher up who are learning those truths, and they can do something about it.
That's right.
You know? So I think, you know, going back to that trust issue, we have to trust that there are those people working at those levels who can do something about it. And I think, like I said last time, the doctors are doing a lot about that.
That's right, because they're right in the middle of it. They're on the front line actually dealing with it. They're the ones who know.
Yeah, they're speaking up. A lot of them are speaking up.
They are. And it's very brave of them, you know, but they're desperate. They're absolutely desperate.
Yeah.
And just can't sort of put up with it anymore. So yeah, that's right. That's right. So Pluto's, just so people know, Pluto's going to be retrograde now for about 5 months. It's completely normal. It happens every year. And many people are born with Pluto retrograde. So it's like, you know, there's no need to be concerned about it. It's a very normal thing, but it's just a period of time where we're kind of digging a bit deeper. That's just a good way to look at it, think about it. We're digging deeper. So I think in the world, you know, it's going to be a lot more of that digging around there in the dark shadows, you know, to bring more stuff to light. And then in 5 months, when he comes forward again, things will really kind of move and start getting cleaned up, I think.
I remember when we did the first recording in this series, you spoke about how what we're seeing over these 3 months, and we've had 1 month of it now, is up until July, is what we're going to see after December. And I'm wondering, have you got any insights about that yet?
So you're referring to the Jupiter-Saturn conjunction in Aquarius. That's right. So that's, you know, it brings us to the whole theme of the sign of Aquarius, and it is very, very significant. And I'll just refer to it again. I think I mentioned it the first time, that for the last 200 years, all the Jupiter and Saturn conjunctions, which happen every 20 years, so for the last 200 years, they've all, bar one, been in earth signs. And so there's been this tremendous focus on, you know, practicalities and pragmatism and money and finance and achievement and economy and so on and so on. This one, the last one happened 20 years ago in Taurus. This one happens at, was it 0 or 1? I forget, 0 or 1 degrees of Aquarius, right at the beginning of the sign of Aquarius. And to me, that's a signature of one of the key points in the birthing of the age of Aquarius. There are many over a period of time, but I think this is a key one. And I feel that a big part of what that's going to, and it sets the tone for the 20 years to come in terms of how we function and operate in the world. Jupiter, Saturn, how, you know, our belief systems, our models of operating. And so it's bringing in a whole new paradigm and a new paradigm possibility. It's birthing something quite new, and it can include a degree of revolution, sign of Aquarius, but also a real shift in consciousness and a shift of focus on how we operate, how we function collectively, how we organize ourselves collectively, politically, economically, environmentally, community-wise, in so many ways. it really does represent a paradigm shift, and it will manifest. Interestingly, politically, the US elections are due in November. I mean, what a wild, crazy time for such an important election to be taking place. But, the elections happen in November, and then I think the inauguration is usually in January, or is it December? I can't remember. It's all set in place. So there can be upsets and, real surprises, but things like cryptocurrency and just the way everything operates and functions, the way systems function and are organized, will change. So, we know Saturn's in Capricorn this year and all of last year, with Pluto and Jupiter, and then Jupiter and Saturn come out and leave Pluto still in Capricorn to finish his job there for the next few years. But they've moved on. They're kind of paving the way, in a way, because they're faster moving planets, for when Pluto comes into Aquarius 2024. Watch out, because that is major. That's
this year enough.
I know. I know.
Can't be any more tumultuous, can it?
Yes. It actually can, I think it can, because I think, what we're talking about is a collective awakening, and many people have spoken for a long time, mystics, spiritual teachers, leaders, Indigenous people, and so on. The only solution to humanity's problems are a shift in consciousness, really.
Yeah.
It's the only solution to any of it, and a renewed relationship with the earth. And that enough people need to get that to cause a momentum, like a huge wave that will change everything. And that these things that happen with the planets, these movements of the planets, are triggers that accelerate the next stage of that, the next piece of that. But it's not an easy process. It's a very tumultuous process. It's like crisis after crisis after crisis, and challenge after challenge, because we've made such a mess of things for so long. It's like on every single front, even before COVID hit, on every front, it was just, everything's just in a state of incredible crisis.
Economy, ecology, health, everything, all the systems that we have,
everything, education, all of it.
Well, our economy was headed for a dive before this started.
That's right.
Yeah,
that's right. So it is a phenomenal time, and it's because I view things not only but primarily through the lens of astrology. It is fascinating to track all of this and not only intellectually but energetically as well, to actually feel it and tune into it. So you start to sort of feel the energies of these planets and what they bring and what they carry. The intellect is one thing, but I think we experience them on many levels, actually. If and we're all tuned into different things, we're attuned in different ways, aren't we? So for many astrologers, that's their sort of tuning fork, their way. Yeah.
So we roll on through the pandemic, following the star trails.
Following the star trails, exactly.
So next time we'll be back with the full moon, having a look at that.
Yes, and that's a very interesting one too, because every May, the full moon in May, when the full moon is in Taurus and the sun is in Taurus and the full moon is opposite in Scorpio. That is Wesak, which is celebrated in the Buddhist world, all over the world, as a very important time. And so I'll talk about that. It's always regarded as a very, very potent, important full moon, the one in May.
Well, thanks, Babula. It's been very interesting as usual.
Very welcome. My pleasure.
And everyone, we will be back with our next episode with full moon in Scorpio.
Yes.
Wonder where that's going to take us.
Indeed, indeed.
All right. Bye, everyone.
Bye, everybody. Bye.